I'm here because I actually work within the industry. I'm passionate about housing. I'm the kid who started their life with Lego. My twin brother and I would be given a Lego fire truck or a car, and I would always turn it into housing. And it led me into a career that I love. I'm a qualified real estate agent. Don't start moaning, because houses have to be sold and bought for us to be able to build them. And it was something that I just loved. I learned so much in that role. I'm also a qualified interior designer and colour consultant, but I've also studied landscape design, and I've also worked as a kitchen and bathroom designer. I've worked in a plethora of roles around the house. I've had my own design practice now for coming on to 24 years. I work incredibly stupid hours, but if you work in an industry that you love, it sort of flows on for you. As far as a role of what I get to do, a lot of what's been spoken about in the room, very important information, technical information, documentation, where our products are coming and where they're sourced and how they are created is of course something that we're dealing with globally. As an interior designer, I'm a specifier. I'm that link between the creation of the products and the market. And we've talked a little bit about it already in the room, about the communication between that, the expectation of the clients, the final people who are taking this information in, and what their expectations are. The mums and dads are a different animal to what I started with over 23 years ago. They are much more informed. They want to be sustainable. They want to make these decisions, and it's up to us in many instances to be able to use the information that a lot of you create and put into printed form, and the products that you create, allowing us to have these in our designer toolbox to be able to then put into product. So there's a little bit of a rundown of how I get to do what I do and how I get to be here. The ability to talk underwater for me and talk about anything to do with housing led to me to be able to work into television. So I used to work on a show called The Living Room on Channel 10, and I was dealing with transforming spaces on the most ridiculous budgets. We had about $500 to change a house, and a lot of that came to repurposing and refunctioning existing pieces of furniture. We would run through salvos with a camera, and we would be doing it on the fly. And most of that material that I would be finding would be made from timber. And there was a reason why. I could pull it apart, I could sand it, I could paint it, I could stain it, I could turn it into something other than what it was. And that led to being actually headhunted and asked to come to a meeting with Planet Ark. They love that about the process, that direct connection with the mums and dads, the people watching the show. So I do work as an ambassador with Planet Ark amongst many others, and do get to work with Plant a Tree Day and Recycling Week. So you can see that I sort of have no life, and I get to do something that I love. I was doing documentation till late last night so we could fly up here this morning. I do work now with a great show called Renovate or Rebuild. It won a sustainability award last year. It's being created with the production company backed by CSIRO. I went to many meetings where I heard about CSIRO, and I had to ask, what's CSIRO? And I didn't realise you all obviously know. CSIRO. So it's an exciting show for me to be in. It's the first show that I've actually just been the host of. I've been co-host and presenter on quite a few shows. But this show is about explaining to people how to help them with that big question that many people are asking: should I renovate or should I rebuild? There's price ramifications of both of those things. There's time. And all of the decisions on the products that are going to go into those homes is immense. So it's an exciting process. And Open Homes Australia, you can watch it on Saturday. The season's already on, but we're still finishing filming because that's the reality of TV. Don't trust what you see. It doesn't look like it does. And I look thinner on television and many magazines. I was actually speaking to the boys from WeatherTech there, and Aaron tells me that they have a machine that takes the sugar and the starch out of it. And I'm wondering if I can pop into that machine. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about trends and design and being sustainable, because it all sort of becomes something involved and intertwined these days. I remember many years ago we would be asked about, what's this and this green design, James? You know, do I have to pick something green in my house? And ironically now, green as a colour is a huge trend, and it's really influenced our homes and our designs. Apart from being able to work in the space and be the designer and the specifier and the documenter, and then being able to work in this media space, I also do Sydney, Brisbane and Melbourne home shows. I was up here a few weeks ago, and I'll be back later in the year for Brisbane Home Show, where I get to deal directly with the punters, we call them, the mums and dads that are looking to rebuild or renovate themselves, and they want to know the latest products, what can I use? And invariably, they want to know where it's coming from and where it's sourced and is it sustainable. As part of my life, I also do get to travel. I travel nationally and globally. I've been going to the Josiah, the tile fair, which sounds unrelated to why we're here in the room at the moment, but it's ironic that many of the latest tile trends now are replicating the look of timber. The reason is because it's so strongly demanded, and yet sometimes they want to have something functional that they can run through and want to run in a bathroom, so they're trying to replicate a finish that timber can actually perform already. It's a very noticeable trend that's particularly raised over the last sort of 7 years, and I've been going to Bologna, a terrible place to have to visit in Italy each year. Thank you. I can hear the pain of having Parmesan cheese and tortellini whilst we're looking at products and trends and colours. I also go to Milan, which is the design fair. It's the largest design fair in the world. And sustainability is hugely notable on every stand. They have cards, they have information to explain how it's made, where it's sourced, where the fabric's coming from. So it's very exciting for us all to understand. As far as our population is growing, you pointed about demand, and is demand being able to suit where the products are coming from. That's important for us to be aware of. It's also important to understand a popular phrase that's also been spoken about today, that circular economy, and understanding when we're using something, what happens at the end of its life and can it be reused again. I'm going to touch a little bit now about some trends and some influences that I see, and then how they sort of filter through into our market. It's a little bit lighter than what a lot of you have been digesting today. My role through television, particularly with Renovate or Rebuild, is to be able to pass on information that can be quite strong. We want to know all this information. But when mums and dads are watching this, it's sometimes likened to eating dry muesli. It's information that they want and they know it's good for them, but it's hard to digest. So I'm the milk and fruit on the muesli. Thank you very much. Biophilia, you might have heard this term, and it's been touched on. I know David mentioned it. It's also been picked up a lot in media at the moment. It is essentially being this green inside. Now, it's something that we in Australia have been doing for a long time. Because of our climate, we have this great link between inside and outside, particularly here in Brisbane, in the northern parts of Australia, where the climate is so amazing. This connection between inside and out is so important. David alluded to this, but part of my roles with Planet Ark was being able to attend and present at various functions. What I found utterly exciting was that scientific tests have been done to test the reaction of people when they are in nature, when they're walking through the forest. We all know that we go for a walk outside to clear our heads. And it's scientifically proven that the blood pressure lowers and our heart rate slows when we're walking outside in the bush. Makes sense. It therefore flows on to, of course, having plants inside our house. We get often laughed at in our home because we have 6 or 7 plants just in our bathroom. So we have lots of plants. What was really interesting is that the technology also shows the scientific evidence that the same effect happens inside the home when you use timber inside. And as an interior designer, I find that utterly amazing. It also works when we see things that replicate the look of timber and the finishes and a lot of the textures that are timber. And there's something just primeval about how us as an animal perform when we have that need of nature, that feeling inside. We've been dealing with a strange time over the last 2 years. I've got an 18-year-old who's now 6'3". We don't know how that happened. And a 17-year-old who's doing year 12. These kids have gone through 2 years that we never had to deal with of isolation. And that's reflected into our interiors in a huge way. This need to connect with outside because we've been isolated and locked inside. I joke a lot. My jokes are incredibly bad. They're dad jokes. I think they're funny. I usually laugh before I tell them. But there's a serious science of understanding how space works. I get to create display homes in Sydney for large builders, and there's a reason why I select and put together certain finishes and the effect it has on us. Biophilia here you can see with Bosco Verticale. It's an amazing structures that are in Milan. Anyone who's been there can see them towering off into the distance. You're nodding your head, you obviously recognise them. They are just so incredibly unique. Slightly different as to the structures that David's talking about. You can see the height here, very tall. But instead of being actually made with the products and lots of timber, which there is inclusion within the finishes, they have these beautiful gardens just draping and growing, and these buildings are evolving each time we go. Each year you can see them transforming in front of your eyes. We're starting to see this in our global cities and in our capital cities around the country here in Australia. But this is a big push because we need to have this link between these almost hanging gardens of Babylon concept and included in the home. It's also flown through the amazing architect, one of my favourites, sadly passed away a few years ago, Zaha Hadid. I had the privilege of being able to be taken into this building on the right. This building you can just make out is very white and clean, hugely organic shapes, lots of curves and beautiful fluid shapes that are very organic, that play on nature instead of a straight structured form, but also lots of timber on there as well. Those darker sections inlaid are natural timber. You can see the fluid shape on the left there as well, this beautifully fluid organic shape, and you're seeing this greatly used, particularly in Asian cities where their architecture is really transforming as this landscape's changing from farmland to cities filled with millions of people. We're watching this happen. Inside there at the bottom, you can see those beautiful columns. It feels like Mother Nature, these trees, where it's giving that feeling of a column, now going up to fluted ceilings and a beautiful use of timber. So this is an exciting time for all of us to see this and notice it one time in one space after another as we move around. I'm not sure about all of you in the room, but Sandra and I go for dinner and we're often told, now you need to go to the bathroom and take your camera with you because the bathroom's amazing. And we get ideas from the local restaurant or where we go. Just remember to turn your phone on silent because you get strange looks when you're taking a photo in a toilet. I'm going to go into some finishes now and start with colour. This image here looks slightly more greenish, but that large, beautiful plush sofa that's just sort of calling you to come to, it's actually much more of a steely green. It's got a nice blue undertone. As far as colour is always emotive. We love colour, we're drawn to it. For fixed finishes, flooring, joinery, bench tops, I tend to go neutral. I tend to go very neutral, and there's a reason why. One of the most important things that I think I can do as a designer is sustainable design, is to design things that look great and last for a long time. That means they won't be updated and be replaced. And that in itself is one of the most important fundamental things we can do as the design community to be able to give longevity to the products that we use. The colours that have come through have definitely also been influenced by what's happened globally. We've had a lot happening. I've got some wonderful Russian clients at the moment and good Russian friends. There's one crazy one giving us a lot of turmoil. And we need to be able to turn off all of this media and switch off and come home to this calm space. And colour has also reflected this. Colours are much more muted. These polarising colours, I remember only a few years ago, the colour of the year was ultraviolet, very strong and iridescent, quite a violet purple colour. Now colours are much more muted. They're much more greyed off. My best explanation of the colour palette is almost going to a nursery and grabbing a tray of succulents. Those beautiful tones of the greeny greys, the pebbles that you find on the beach, really muted colours that are greyed and browned off. This is the colour palette that we are living with at the moment, and something that's very calming and soothing. You can see my hands have to work when I talk. That's why I can't hold this microphone, my Italian lineage. Green. Now, green has been a colour that's been popular in Australian homes for years. I'm going to be showing a few images in a moment of a house that we're currently renovating. We're using products that are within this room, and we're using them for a purpose which I'll explain. But as part of this footage, we are transforming a very ugly red brick house, of which there's thousands of them around Australia, and turning it into a Palm Springs-inspired masterpiece. So you'll be getting a little glimpse of where we're at with that. In that we are pulling out a laminated timber kitchen with a green bench top that looks like Kermit the Frog. And I use the fact, how could we keep this? Of course it has to go. And strangely enough, I heard a brand here in the room, Polytech, and I'm replacing it with a green-based colour kitchen. So I'll be showing a little bit of that as well. Green is something that is so comfortable and calming. Indigo, I say it's this new word that our children teach us now, which is non-binary. Indigo's non-binary. Women love it, men love it, it goes with everything. Rich, deep greens, like that forest green and that beautiful plush sofa, is definitely another colour that I think goes with most, and it's an easy way to accessorise and bring inside the house. How that represents and is influenced through products, well, it's literally going green, but there are also products that are recycled. Lots of recycled plastics in fabrics that are suitable to be put outside. The sun can bake them and they won't fade, and yet they're plush like a velvet. So it's an exciting time to be feeling these fabrics and to be told that they're made from milk bottles. I like the fact that I now have a timber toothbrush, and I know that that timber toothbrush, when it's finished its life, is probably going to be turned into a piece of WeatherTex that I'll use on my next renovation. You can see the various green tones there. So there is a whole range of colours, but it's definitely that deep green that's come through, and you can start to see those very organic shapes, which I'm going to talk about in a little moment. Yellow. Now, yellow is a very emotive colour. Many people hate it. I have had an aversion with yellow. I think yellow can be quite polarising, but the yellow that is currently being used in the homes is much more of a cenepe. Cenepe is the mustard seed. So it's a greened off mustard colour. I can see you're nodding, you know exactly the colour I'm talking about. It's that beautiful mustard tone with a slightly green undertone, but it's also those beautiful dusted yellows that you find in like saffron in the spice market. Again, it's a grade off tinted colour. This particular round armchair is something that you just want to jump into and curl up, probably this time of the afternoon or with a glass of wine, and I'm sure we're nearly at that time. But the fabric is a boucle, so it's bringing back fabrics from the 70s, very highly textured. As part of our issues that we're dealing with at the moment, technology is changing our lives. And technology was really going in a direction for many years, and it's starting to come back because we're now talking, there was an article that I read only 2 days ago about Elon Musk having to be responsible and questioning about where AI is going. We have to understand that we as humans have to digest this technology, and we have lots of shiny, smooth surfaces that we slide our fingers over, and yet we yearn for something that we can touch, something that is highly textural. So these textural fabrics are definitely reflecting that need to touch. We couldn't touch each other for a few years either, so we do need to all touch each other again in a non-disturbing way. Or not. Ochre. Ochre is a beautiful colour. Now, it's really the colour, in Australia, this colour suits us so very well. We have this colour outside our homes. Much of the country, as we have this amazing landscape that we call home, the ochre, the colours of the earth, are everywhere and they're ever changing. I can remember literally standing with my mouth open when I got to do a trip to Uluru and watch the sunset, and I tried to click, 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 and then I just gave up because the colours that were changing in front of my eyes was like going through a fan deck. I'm sure our friends from Wattle would completely get it. The ochre colours are really earthy, and it's that calming tone to be able to bring in the outside again back inside, this time in a very comfortable tone. Combine that with the textural fabrics. You can see there a big range of the finishes. I will also touch on there being lots of natural stone and natural veins. This idea of having honesty in our products. We want honesty in our branding. We've talked about that today. We want honesty in the people that we're communicating with, in our relationships, and we want honesty in the products that we're sourcing, where they're coming from. And the honesty and the almost diluted natural form of products is really important. Honed finishes, textural finishes, leather finishes in natural stone. Terracotta. Now, terracotta, you might know panna cotta. We get to eat as dessert. Baked cream. Terracotta is just baked earth. So the terracotta is similar to the ochre colours, but it's definitely got more of a red tinge. It's those beautiful terracotta pots that you see in Spain and in Italy, and of course in Australia we love them as well. But it also flows slightly over into the tan leathers as well. Tobacco is a colour that's nice to look at in your home, not great for you to smoke. Not good for you. The beautiful colour and the way that's used is also a colour that's quite muted, and it sits very well in a landscape that was very grey for many years. There's a design term that we use called greyish, and it's a fancy word for grey beige. We like these fusions. I had to write a story for a magazine many years ago about Japandi, and it was Japan and Scandi, and I had to have a drink to be able to think what I was writing. The shapes and the colours that we put together are really important. They have a huge influence on us. The same way that that calming effect has when we walk through the bush, and the effect that timber has around us when we have it in our homes and in the finishes that we use, the colours have the same emotive effect. We want calming. For people who like a little bit of a red-based colour, try terracotta. If you paint a nice red wall on the back of your 6-year-old's bedroom's wall, you might wonder why they start to become very hyperactive in front of you. Terracotta lets you have the red in a much calmer way. Shape is utterly important. Shape is a nice flow, and you start to see the shape in lots of fabric forms and lots of timber forms as well. All of the sharp edges have disappeared. I'm sure that you have all seen this. Round basins, pill-shaped mirrors, curves in our public benches that are beautifully made of timber in our parks. Coffee tables, ottomans, they are ottomans, don't put your feet on a puff. And beautiful armchairs, all with these rounded corners, are just softer and calmer to use. And you also see this in finishes. It's a nice way to have texture in a soft way to navigate through the home. It's like not wanting to deal with these harsh corners, these harsh positions of transition. We don't want it in our relationships. We don't want it when we're dealing with a brand or a firm. We don't want it in our home. There's a nice fluid way. Feng Shui came in a big way about 20 years ago. I had a friend who studied Feng Shui and became a Feng Shui artist. And for me, it was just thinking of a house like water, and water flows, and I want to flow through a house. That's how I dumbed it down and used that knowledge with my own clients. And it's the same here. You can see these beautiful fluid forms. What's interesting with shape is that shape can actually call us. It's almost like a call, and we are drawn towards them and want to touch and sit on them. And why is that? There's a psychology of how these shapes work on us, how these colours work on us, how texture works on us, and how timber works on us. It's something that appeals to our instincts, our animal instincts, and there's something that draws us to sit there and then be calm. If it's hard as a rock, maybe it doesn't have the same finish because we think it's going to be soft because the corners are soft. Shape is utterly important. Shape that is not necessarily what you expect. These are natural stone vessels, and they're carved to be completely fluid. They almost look like the water has filled them and rounded them off. That large bath there, Agape, is a company in Italy, this beautiful showroom, but this product has been carved out of one piece of marble. It is quite amazing. It would hold the water temperature beautifully, but it's just so tactile to touch. And this beautiful fluid form, it looks like it sort of just wants to have the water in there and naturally swells and moves with it. That vessel on the top left, it looks like it's almost like a jelly bean almost. It's sort of played and moved. The water has somehow affected it from having the water inside the vessel. So this is an exciting experience when things that you might think are one way actually feel like another. We expect stone and rock to be really quite hard, and when it's softened with these round curves, it becomes more fluid and more pliable. Texture. Texture is utterly important. This particular company, as do many of the large tile companies, and I know I'm slightly going off path, but it's all about trends and finishes. They have now a huge impetus on where the products are made, how they are made, what they do with the materials while they're making it. The water is recycled from the glazing process. Staff are paid incentives to come to their workplace by train and not drive. There's a huge impasse on how we're going to use the technology. Solar panels are everywhere in Italy, much more than we have here even. You drive around through valleys and you see olive trees and solar farms. And this has a huge impact, which we like to understand where something comes from and how it's going to last. You can see that pill shape that's embossed into the tile, but also that ribbing detail on the tile as well. That ribbing detail you can see here already with products that we've got in the room. Texture, that tactile call for our hands is so important. One of my particular interior design styles that I personally love is mid-century modern. It's Palm Springs. It's that use of cladding. It's hugely from the mid-century of last century, but into the 60s and 70s. We know this. A lot of us grew up with this in our homes. And that fluid shape, those beautiful lines, that ribbing adds so much visual interest to a space. And that's why it's perfect to have in our homes. The colour tone's quietly muted here, a little bit more light green than I'd seen elsewhere, but you can see those muted colours in the background and the muted blues and a little bit of the ochres. The textures put up on the wall there, you can see also the variation within those tiles. We are embracing handmade now. It's like a piece of origami. It's like beautifully made things by the artisans where you see the fingerprint from the person making it. We like the imperfection. We tend to fall into perhaps a Western model, maybe an American model of all wanting to look the same age forever and all start to look the same. But really that imperfection, that little line, that little bit of patina here on the side of the eyes that we work hard to create and earn is visually interesting. And to have that in our finishes, I think that has a huge impact on us. And that also flows through to all the finishes we want in our home, these beautiful tactile finishes. Here is the ribbing again, and it starts to touch into the strong use of timber. That beautiful play on line, you can see almost like on the bottom, the right image rather, it's almost like the tiler with his grouting tool. When they put the tiles on, it's visually interesting before they put the tiles on and cover it all up. But that beautiful play of the grout, and it looked like that. I could see this sort of handmade tooling of being able to make these marks. Curves on kitchen bench tops. And then the beautiful ribbing of the profile. So we're combining that natural stone, the honed finish. It had a leather finish so you could touch it, feel that on your fingertips, and then run your fingers around the edge of this beautiful bench top and the joinery with that nice rib detail. Texture and ribbing, it's very emotive. I think joinery and cabinetry is very sexy, can you tell? I think you should have had music here, by the way. Justin Timberlake, don't you think would be good for a wood event? Or yeah, knock on wood. We maybe do that next year. These are more vessels, and you can start to see now the play of technology. It is exciting to see this rib detail on vessels that we otherwise see as something quite standard and formatted. The image on the left, you can actually see if you look into that vessel, when it's filled with water, it actually had like water marking as if you dropped a pebble inside and the rings came out of the water. It looked quite beautiful as they filled it and then let it go to be able to play with that water line, that watermark. Again, embracing nature and being able to have it come inside. Those vessels on the top left, I looked at them and I know my mum has one of these beautiful glazed bowls, which is like a jelly mould. And I instantly saw jelly. There's that sugar hit that I need to get rid of in that beautiful machine of yours. And the bath, I think, well, that's just sort of calling for us to want to touch it and to have that amazing immersive experience in a bath, but also run our hands on the side of it as we're in there. Timber. Timber is something that we have lived with forever. Timber furniture. I know we were lucky to have some Parker furniture pieces where I grew up. A lot of the furniture that I put first in our house, my twin brother and I bought our first house together and we couldn't afford much at all. We bought new mattresses. It was the only thing we had that were new. Everything was secondhand. Timber tables, timber chairs, things we sanded and painted, and this is many years ago. Timber is so versatile, as you know in this room. I'm sort of preaching to the converted. But timber as a finish is also incredibly refined and what we can do with it. It has longevity. As part of our renovation, I had to pull up timber laminate flooring from the house. I sourced what I could do with it. I had to break it up and make it fit as much as it could into a bin, and it's gone into landfill. I've replaced it with engineered timber flooring, a beautiful slice of oak on top of thicker slices cross-laminated of ugly tree, but very functional. I've ended up with a beautiful timber flooring that is going to be so wonderful to walk on. It's got a textured leather finish. It's going to play on light. It runs throughout the whole home. It's great underfoot. And touch wood, when this house does have its life come to an end and it's time to recycle, rechange, maybe another property goes in its way, that timber product can be reused. It can be pulped like it is over there and turned into the next bit of cladding. And that is utterly exciting. You can see also all of the profiles being such an adaptable material there to be able to put all of these finishes that we want. Lots of ribbing, curves, beautiful sculpted forms. I'm breathing in there on the side as well, I must be. Timber combined with different finishes. This was a really noticeable trend in Milan. This is from the fair. It's coming up now. It's almost now again. I go every 2 years now because it links with cucina, which is kitchens and bathrooms. They do study the office and lighting, and then each second year they do kitchens and bathrooms. So I go to Milan now each second year. But all of that beautiful ribbing, you can see timber details, all of the timber that's running through into wet areas. And that's because of the products that can be used now. The beautiful stains, the waxed finishes that allow timber to be used inside wet areas is also a really exciting result of technology, of advancements, for us to be able to use that in our designer toolkit and for us to have a product in our home that's going to last incredibly well. It's not going to chip, it's not going to have to be refixed, and if it did need to, we could sand it and give it another stain. Timber inside and outside, beautiful timber finishes combined with natural stones, combined with glazed elements. These beautiful tables here look like something from the potter's wheel from some mid-century home, really 70s inspired shapes. Lots of glazed and matte finishes combined with timber. This combination was actually very easy for me to find from all of our images. Between Sandra and I, we come back with something like 25,000 images, which is insane because I'm sure we haven't looked at them all. But you just need to watch when you can click, 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 click. It's so easy these days. I remember the first time I travelled overseas and I was taken to the flower market in Amsterdam and I had black and white film in my camera. It was really clever. But we didn't have digital. That beautiful ribbing you can see on those tables, those different height coffee tables, the organic shapes that are able to be appealing, combining height, scale, shape and texture. And that's one of the benefits that we can get with timber, to being able to combine these beautiful shapes. You can see in that top left image, the round shape with that beautiful sculpted top. And then it's almost pebble-like base. It's beautifully rounded underneath. That idea of the unexpected, when you look through at a piece of furniture and you'll be able to feel it with your hands. That friend who comes over and feels your bench tops and says, how thick is this stone? And what's that timber bench top like? And they're checking out what you've done. I'm that friend. Something calls for me to touch every surface. I do have a video online if you wanted to look at of the whole fair, and I put together all of the trends and finishes. You can see me lift. That's about as much exercise as I do after all of the Parmesan cheese and pasta that we eat in Italy. But it's exciting to be able to understand what's happening globally and to be able to relate that to our national market. We are spoilt here in Australia. We have some of the largest homes per capita, but we also really enjoy our homes. We change our homes. I can remember many, many years ago, my partner's Italian born. I was amazed to think in Italy you buy an apartment without a kitchen and you bring your kitchen with you. Like, that's just amazing for an Australian to consider. But we want finishes that are going to wear well and perform well in our space. I'm now going to go through to a little bit of a space how I use all of these knowledge and put finishes together. We are renovating a property and we are using brands, as I said, within the room. Starting with the inside, we're dealing with a space where I'm going to give you a few glimpses. We put some things on social media. You can see on the left there a beautiful piece of the cladding that we've actually used to paint some brush outs on there. You can see these colours that we've used, that we're playing with what's actually going to work. Colour is so emotive. Is there a right colour? Is there a wrong colour? No. Colours change, colours evolve, colours evoke different feelings. I think it's Koreans get married in a red wedding dress. It's quite amazing to see how colour is different culturally and different. It means different things to us in this beautiful melting pot here of Australia. On the right, part of the renovation in this room was to create a bunk room and put 2 bunk beds in the corner. For me to add texture on that wall, I did it for 2 reasons. When I'm renovating a home, adding texture, getting a product that I can clad onto a wall is a very cost-effective way to transform a space. It's perfect for that DIY market. I was sharing some images of this, a little hint, at the home show for mums and dads to go, here's a clever way to transform the look and feel of this house. To be able to have this cladding detail on here transforms it. It adds vertical texture on the walls and transforms how the space feels. I will also stretch your minds a little bit to understand, whether you like or not, this idea we were animals and where we came from. These tall elements are something we innately understand. They're trees in the forest where we sort of came from and created who we became as humans. There's something emotive. The column makes sense to us because it's like a tree. These vertical lines, more so in my opinion than horizontal, make sense to us. They draw our eye in and we look up and down. Texture is a hugely emotive finish when you're inside a home. The psychology of creating a display home, when I put texture on certain key walls, the hero wall when I walk into a bedroom behind the bed, makes people walk in and their eyes look at texture on a wall and they are caught in this conundrum of, what is that? Is it forward? Is it backward? That's interesting. And they're almost drawn there without actually realizing why. It's a psychology of texture and how it affects us as an animal. I get serious for a moment because there is a real science between what we do and people don't understand because it's just texture. But there's so much more than that. I think it's incredibly exciting. Here's some more beautiful, that's a channel 25 come through with EasyCraft. Now, this is a beautiful, rich terracotta tone. It's not for everyone. This tone we ran through as a wainscoting. So wainscoting is quite an American term. It's cladding that runs halfway up. In Australia, we're very clear with a picture rail that sits around, you hang your pictures off, and then the centre rail is a dado rail. It's designed like a chair rail where your chairs used to hit against. Infilling that creates wainscoting. And this beautiful cladding product is a really cost-effective way to add it to a home, but elevating that by adding colour onto it in an otherwise quite neutral backdrop is a really clever way to enhance the home. You can see that influence of this product. This is another pulp product. And on my floor, you can see that timber, a little glimpse of the timber that we use, that American oak. The honesty of product. I remember years ago, we really had blackbutt and spotted gum, the two most popular Australian timbers, hard on the Jenga rating. And they were sort of fixed with what colour tones we could go with. All of the beautiful engineered timbers, a lot of them are oak now because they have that knotting and the crowning of timber. It's something that's so beautiful. We embrace the imperfections now instead of what clients used to ask for was select grade without any of that character. It was sort of almost too bleached and perfect, and now we like all of that. You can see here running through, there's our joinery on the right, two different sets of the joinery. We use the same colourway through. And then on the left is a little glimpse of our kitchen. That's actually now my new green kitchen. You might recognise that colour, forage. This greeny grey, it's actually a greyed off green based colour. And then I teamed it up with a polyurethane colour match for that ribbing at the front, this time in a cove, playing on different textural elements and then just curving the island. It was a very cost effective way to add a sexy curve to the kitchen. But now it's so soft and calming, this space. It sits so beautifully on the timber floors. It's a representation, that biophilia again, the green of the trees and the timber of the trunk, and this time interpreted in our homes. It just works so well. I almost think you can't go wrong as a colour scheme. That's the house we bought. How does it look? Yeah, wow, I know. We won't be putting this on air, but we watch with our son, which is probably not great to watch with an 18-year-old, but we watch Breaking Bad on Thursday nights when he comes over. It's a great series. We had our own Breaking Bad. These tenants of ours, which we didn't know, we bought the house with them in it, were making meth in the garage, which was wonderful. It's a really quite a frightening experience, and we went through a whole process of trying to deal with it. This home had to be transformed. My real estate brain, my design brain looked at it. I could see the strong bones of this home. I could see the strength of the product. I knew that there was no cracks in important spots. It was structurally built well. It was just damn ugly. It did have that vertical deal on the top, the little character up there in the gable ends, but they're actually a metal. And they're all rusting away. The roof tiles were aged, there was some leaking inside, but otherwise the home was structurally sound. It had great bones, it just had no connection with inside and out, so we've started to transform this. I wanted to create an online series, and it's actually going to be on Channel 9 in September with a show called Beyond the Build. And I wanted to give it a name that explained what I did, so it's called James Bought a House. Sandra will keep saying, where is his name? And the children's want to be involved, but it's James Bought a House. I want to share with you a little bit now how we've transformed it externally here with WeatherTex. Now, for me, if I want to be sustainable, not only have I used a beautiful product, I was drawn to this product. I use it with a few of my builders. We're excited now. I was just talking with the team over there because we're using the natural finish and getting some wonderful stains on this finish to be able to use externally, because timber externally is so incredibly important for that very Australian take on mid-century modern. That idea, if people are familiar with Colorbond Monument with an off-white, that charcoal, and adding the timber element adds that warmth of product. But they get worried about the wear and tear and the maintenance of looking after it. Being able to have a product that is so environmentally made, that huge amount of wood pulp, and then the only other additive is a wax, is quite amazing for me to understand, because my brain tells me surely there should be some glues or something in there holding this together. It is exciting to see where technology has come. Australians are very clever, we sometimes forget. In this house at the back, you can't see it, I have a Hills hoist. Great Australian invention, it's not going anywhere, I'm keeping it. So keep in mind where this is, and that's the back section now, that same image. You can see me smiling, standing there with our weather text box. I changed and now the kitchen is in that room. How was I going to change it? I've actually painted the brick on much of this house because I like the texture, and this ugly red brick that had almost like a pressed noodle format. It was so ugly and so bad, and yet when it's painted white it actually looks quite good because it was textured. It was the red that was pulling it down. But I wasn't going to re-brick all of these windows that I was changing these openings, and cladding was the perfect solution. For me, not only am I being environmental using this product, and I do love it, and I sound like I'm really pushing it, but I know I'm preaching to a room of converted already. I was really excited to find that the factory and where this is all coming from is only up in the Hunter, so it's about an hour's drive from me, so I'm even more sustainable than I even intended to be. You can see that I've added the cladding up there on the gable end. It's a nice soft bluey grey. It's a new colour by Colorbond on the roof, blue gum matte, and it's a very soft, calm palette, but the windows are in a charcoal, just to give that little pop, a little bit of eyeliner is the analogy I give. You can see instantly how that texture, it's basically an all-white wall. If that was just a rendered smooth finish, it would not look like that. It would look incredibly bland. And yet the texture adds that another dimension, and there's no colour. It's very muted. This is the back. There was a door, there was a window. You can just see to the left with that remarkably ugly awning that sat above that laundry window, and the air conditioning unit. And that's been replaced now. We've put a bit of an alfresco there. We've got a pizza oven going in because we have to eat pizza. It's good for my diet. But all of that cladding now has created such a visually interesting place, and that beautiful backdrop of that white on white scheme, which is what I loved when we went through Palm Springs ourselves. You drive through from LA and go out into the desert and find this space. On our way back, after looking at houses for 4 days, we'd bribed our kids with Disneyland and Universal Studios. We pulled back into North LA. I got out of the car and I actually got emotional. I started to cry, and our daughter goes, "OMG, you're crying about another house." And I said, "That is the Brady Bunch house. And you have no idea the influence that's had on me and most Australian architects. The stone, the monostring staircase, the cladding, the timber detailing, all of those elements from that house built in the early 60s in America is what we're using now in current modern homes. It's actually very exciting to realise the longevity of that style. So that beautiful cladding you can see up on my gable end, I don't have any leaks now anymore. All of that's been fixed up with this product. It's utterly reliable and renewable as well. It's such an important product. I've also been told that when this house does get pulled down, I can now pull it up and pulp it back up and use it as mulch on my garden for the next house afterwards. So the circle is definitely coming complete. How's that for the front? Now, we're about to build a new entry foyer off the left. We could drive a car down there. There's a new entry foyer going on there with yellow front doors. Wait for it, you'll have to watch it online. The architectural range that's available in the finish is so exciting for me. When I'm dealing with wanting to transform a space, I need to do it cost effectively, because let's face it, most clients are watching budget these days. I need to do it in a clever way and also quickly. Being able to put cladding on in various finishes, various profiles, opens up the possibility to transform the home in a very visually interesting way. Of course, I've added a natural stone wall there. There's my little ode to the Brady Bunch, that nice wall from Mike Brady. But you can see what I did. I pushed that gable end in. It was so far forward. It was like this really heavy forehead on a face. By pushing it back and adding those extended little ceiling joists up on the top there, and then the beautiful crisp paint, the vertical line just complements the texture in the brick so well. It's a play on texture, essentially white on white. If that had been rendered in a smooth board, it would have nowhere near the same effect. You agree? Yeah? This is when you go like that. It's nice and interesting. It's a way to be able to transform the space, and I'm utterly excited, and I'm loving using the product. The guys have installed incredibly well. That's what it started with, and that's how it's going to look. We're adding some breeze blocks, lots of palms, and a real tropical look. And it's a way that was really actually incredibly cost effective, even though we've added some higher end finishes on there to transform what was an ugly home. And this will be going online, but also on a show called Beyond the Build later in the year. As the process of why I'm up here, I think you can see, I know you can't hide passion. I love what I do. I get to work with people transforming their homes and building new homes. But part of that is to be able to understand the products that I'm using and to be able to explain and pass on that knowledge to the client. They are ultimately the consumer that's using all of the products that you create. Being able to understand where it's coming from, how it was made, what happens to it when it's finished and when it's installed. Is it easy to maintain? Do I achieve the look that I want? Those questions are so important, and the consumer that I'm dealing with now is so much more educated than what they were even 10 years ago. They're a very different animal, the mums and dads that I'm dealing with. It's an exciting time, and for me, if anything that I can show is the versatility of timber products. We heard with David, we heard with the team that have been coming up here. It's not going to fit every solution. There's steel, there's concrete, and there's reasons why these things are used. But I can't put a steel floor, I could put a concrete one. I can't put a steel bench top and a steel joinery in the door. Maybe a concrete bench top. Timber is the only product that actually ticks all the boxes for all of the areas within our home, from inside and out, from the kitchens and bathrooms through to the flooring and the finishes that we have in our homes. It has a great impact on us, it makes us feel good, and it's functional for us to use. So if you think that I loved trees, I had a tree house as a kid, well, then you're right. Thank you so much for listening to me, everyone. I hope I haven't put you to sleep. I hope I've inspired you to be able to use this knowledge in some way. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience?
They're all going to say, when do we get a glass of wine?
That's coming, that's coming.
Big shout out to everyone watching online as well. I should have been looking down the barrel. I'm used to TV. After doing live TV, I used to do a show called Sky News Real Estate, which was 6 hours live TV, can you believe it or not? It tests your knowledge of being able to talk underwater when things go wrong. But to everyone watching, thanks so much. We would love to have you here. I'm sure you're drinking a glass of wine already, and everyone in the room is going to be doing so very soon.
Jim Bowden, Woods Central. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Buonasera. I must
Buonasera,
say,
grazie.
what takes me back to Italy on quite a number of occasions is, apart from the food, of course, and the fashion, and places like Chicotera with the colours.
Yep.
And particularly I find that after enjoying a nice wine and food, I like to just sit and watch people. And I would think that the middle-aged men in Italy are probably the best dressed and most colourful people you ever see. The suits, the shoes, everything perfect. But what I found intriguing was the use of colours, which was the case of mixed coloured socks. Now, we've never addressed this problem or this challenge as to why we wear one set of black socks, one set of whatever.
Yep.
But in Italy, I noticed, you'd see this gentleman with a beautiful trilby, the coat over the shoulders, walking along with a green and red socks.
So they're either colourblind or they're incredibly stylish.
Colour.
I had to check what socks are. Oh, I'm wearing some colour. How's that?
He could see the red and the black in the socks.
What I think is interesting for Italian design is that Milan as a fair, it's now, I think, 60 years old, Sandro? Yeah, it was created by the Italian government to promote manufacture, and we're interestingly at that crossroads now of remembering in Australia, and I mentioned the Hills Hoist, that we used to make things here and manufacture things here. Why aren't we doing it again? There's obvious reasons. It's really interesting to say, let's buy Australian and make Australian, and then you say, well, where did you buy that from? Oh, I bought it there because it was cheaper. So our cost of labour is a major issue that's impacting a lot of things to be made here. Milan as a fair was the city that was chosen to promote the artisans. All of the fashion is there. That's where Prada started as a business, and beautiful finishes with family-owned businesses that worked with leather and fabric and created fashion. That's why fashion was there, and then it flowed over into interior design. It's interesting to see because they promote that within themselves as a design culture. They consume design. They're not as scared of it. I think we aren't either. I think we have been in the past, but I think we embrace that much more now. That playfulness that you talk about with the pair of socks is a really interesting analogy. And I think that people are more open-minded to that now. But I still, with my clients, watch their budget and watch the longevity of the house. So I'd love to have the coloured socks as the cushions, the toaster, the elements that are accessible and easily interchanged within a home rather than the fixed finishes. Paint, I can get a tin of paint this afternoon. Many years ago, Sandra and I had an apartment and I had friends come over and they looked at this wall and they went, hey, that was green last time we were here. And I'm working with clients getting colours and I knew that I could basically fit 1 litre of paint would give me a couple of coats and I'd keep changing this one wall because it was the easiest way and I'd have to change the cushions. But as one of my mates pointed out, he said, if you keep doing this, Jimmy, you're going to end up with a room that's half a metre smaller by paint. So paint on cladding, on textured finishes is a very clever, cost-effective way to update a home rather than all of the fixed finishes, and you can have your multicoloured socks.
And just on that too, you mentioned before the cladding or the wainscoting. That seems to be a trend that's really emerged in Australia over the last...
It's massive.
Yeah.
Without being rude in any way, sometimes I start to choke a little bit when I say Hamptons because I find it a little bit overexposed. I think Hamptons in Australia, for me, I call it coastal Hamptons. I think we love that coastal feel. We all we live so much by the water. There's so many elements of that home that make sense to us. Hamptons as a style can be a little bit more rigid and a little bit more classic, and I think it's more relaxed.
But the cladding is really nice. Pardon? It can be a bit display home.
It can be a bit too chocolate box. Yeah. So I like the idea of being able to have the elements. The mudroom is definitely something that people are including now. The textual finishes down a home. And do you know what? It's super functional wainscoting because if you've got kids who are like 4 and 5, they run amok. And what are they going to bash into with their bags and throw things? It's from there down on the wall. So it's actually a very clever, cost-effective way to update a home and to hide all of those holes in the wall and you can stay trendy at the same time. I love as I'm saying that there's like multiple people going, we've got that child. For me, it was my twin brother, not me.
Vanda, do we have any questions from the audience?
I'll actually have a question of my own.
Please, I'd love that, Vanda. Thank you.
I guess with COVID, obviously, a lot of things have changed, and I think one of them is design, especially interior designing.
Yep.
Can you talk about, from your experience, how people have started a lot more working from home and all of that?
Yeah, definitely. It really turned the tide. What was really interesting for me is that I was having meetings through branded content. I get to deal with some large brands these days. I get to deal with some faces that you know on television and magazines. We were having Zoom meetings and afterwards I'd say, can you just stay on the line for a little bit? I'd say, can you fix that damn photo on the back wall of your... It's shocking. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's a piece of IKEA art and you write for a magazine. Like, what are you doing? Why is the pile of washing there? As far as what I've fallen into, for me, it was super easy. I've trained in media to present. I sort of was the kid who would never shut up, so they just let me be out the front like you do very well, by the way.
They need a Zoom background as well.
Pardon?
They need a Zoom background.
Yeah, they need a Zoom background. Be aware of the styling. So working from home is important, but working online. Now, it's opened up a lot of opportunities. I can communicate with people nationally and internationally. I can talk about product. I can draw and show things. I can put colours against each other because I have a library that has a lot of books. Sandra and I love books. I design houses for clients. We put bookshelves in. They don't own books, which I find super weird. Buy books. But my library also has samples of all of this. I have these cladding products. I have to have the real product to put against it or to tactile and touch. And that can be lost over a telephone. But now Zoom really opened up a lot of opportunities. Another thing, Vanda, is the home office. This versatility of a space within the design that's multifunctional. People were educating their kids on the kitchen table and trying to work and then pushing things off. It's very difficult. So this multi-zoning now of homes is massive. Cross-generational living now. We all moved out of home. My parents sold the house, actually moved out and bought another house, and my brother and I stayed in the house. We were so lucky, but we couldn't maintain this big house, like it fell apart. Now kids can't afford to. So I'm dealing with clients building brand new homes where they've got the space upstairs and downstairs has the wet room and multiple bedrooms with en-suites because these kids are in their late teens and they know they're not going to move out. They're going to be with them until they're 30 or when they're married and moved in. It's the same with the home office, this multifunctional space. And I think that's very important. And it sounds like I'm doing a big segue of brand, but I'm not, because I do it. Putting a cladding as a backdrop or on a front drop where you're working with your computer adds visual interest. It's actually good for your eyes, because my Mac computer is the size of like one of these big, it's huge. And I have to get out and walk away to refocus my eyes because I'm just straining them. And it's important. So the home office is really important. It's changed a lot, but I think it's actually exciting, and clients are now happier. We're probably saving petrol and transport and all those things. And you become like newsreaders, you know, you look great from here down. You've got Ugg boots and Okanuis on underneath, like we don't know what the bottom half looks like.
Just on that too, like, is another trend also, I guess, the amount of people that are moving, you know, having elderly parents and grandparents actually moving back into the house because of that as well.
Yeah, I deal with a lot with cross-generational living. Is a nice catchphrase that we use. It's actually more the norm for new Australians. So clients with an Indian or an Asian background, even a Middle East background, will tend to have one of the parents move with them. It's very normal. Australians tend to now start to do that a little bit more. We're dealing with a population that's getting a bit older, and the versatility of having mum and dad stay with you, if you're lucky enough to still have your dad, then they can be picking up the kids from school, helping clean, take the dog for a walk, being functional members of the house. They're not slaves, but they have purpose, which gives them purpose and helps the family unit. And I think it's important. I think it's a great, valuable asset for how we live. Lifestyle and food, we were talking about Italy. Italians know how to live and use their home. They know how to use it from season to season. They know that they use that part of the home in one season in summer and that part in winter because of the sun, or how we use. I think that's exciting. I talk about creating destinations within homes when we're creating floor spaces, a home office, or let's put a bar in that little area so you have somewhere to have a drink after dinner with with your significant other, and talk about the day, so that it's not just where's the kids going, what have you done, wash the car, go to bed, wake up again and repeat. So I think that understanding of how our house impacts our lifestyle is really important.
Interesting. Any other questions?
Good.
We've got one at Jonathan over the back here.
Jonathan, my brother's a Jonathan. He hates when he gets John. There's no H in Jonathan.
There's a lot of different spellings.
Yeah.
I live on the southern end of the Gold Coast, so I can relate to the coastal Hamptons. I've got a 3-year-old, so the wainscoting would be great in our house.
You love them longer.
Yeah. Just a quick question. I wonder if, given your design experience over a number of years, whether you could perhaps comment on some of the changes in attitude or perception from the point of view of the client. For example, are the clients now interested in things that previously they would just let you take the lead on those things? And vice versa, are there things now that the clients are wanting to take the lead on, whereas in years gone by you would just have total scope to make that decision for them?
Yeah, great question actually.
Maybe too open-ended, sorry.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think I'm really easygoing. I was told by a girl who worked for me for many years and now is a head designer with a major architect firm in the city, so I overtrained her. She said, "Do you think you're easygoing and you're a control freak?" I suppose when it represents your name and you're dealing with documentation, you have to be. So I joke a lot. My jokes are incredibly bad and repetitive. But my work is very important because I'm dealing with the most expensive asset that these people own. And there is a science with the work that I create when it's commercial, property for real estate agents, etc. Mums and dads are much more better organised, much more better. We'll let that slide. Much better prepared. They're good Boy Scouts these days. They come with the most amazing digital boards that they've created. They've got Pinterest. They've got all these online tools, almost alerting back to a little bit of what Vanda mentioned, that technology idea of being able to be prepared. So they walk in with ideas of what they want now. That's really valuable for me. It saves a huge amount of time, and time is money. So my hourly rate, they don't want to pay. If they come in and prepared, it makes sense for them, and it makes my job far easier. As far as knowledge, I'll get clients now who are brand specific. So it's like I'm only a Ford Holden person, though I'm a Bosch, I'm a Smeg, I'm only having that brand. I'm not having, so they know their brands and they've researched that. I think that people are spending quite incredible money on these lifestyle choices. Bar fridges, integrated barbecues that can be inside the kitchen, multiple kitchens now. I'm dealing with a house at the moment that's 42 metres wide, right? It's a 3-storey, so it's a single-storey living, and then 2 stories are roof. It's a arts and crafts style home that they've got. The architect is based in New York. So all the plans have come now and it's going through a builder who's redrawing it to be Australianised and built. And it has a room called the Pretty Room, and it's a massive house.
So like an A-frame roof.
It's a beautifully pitched. Arts and crafts is like a play on for Federation homes for us, that then the artisans got to do all the stuff that we can't afford for them to do anymore. But beautiful scooped roofs and the lines on this home. So they've come with mood boards and videos, and they've gone overseas to look at homes and bring it back. Like they're of a price point that they can afford that, and they're utterly down to earth, self-made people. So I love that. They're not pretentious. So to answer your question, they're much better educated. They're more prepared. They know what they like, and then sometimes I'll have to have a debate or explain to them, those shoes look good on that body, but don't work on yours. My job is to tell you your bum looks big in those jeans, and I can do it really delicately. And it's the analogy, but you get what I mean. If Hamptons is an example, not every house, if it's got a skillion roof and it's not a Hamptons home. And so I look at the elements that you like from Hamptons, and maybe it is cladding or the wainscoting, and I can still put wainscoting in a very modern home in a modern way instead of a more traditional looking way. So my job is to understand that, but they're much more demanding, and they know what they want these days. So then it's exciting, can be challenging, but it's exciting.
We've got a question over from James O'Hagan as well.
Thank you.
Jason, I should say.
The big fella.
The big fella.
James, on the back of Jonathan's question there, clients that you're dealing with, and with today's theme around sustainability and sustainable building products, is that coming through about wanting sustainable building products?
Massively, and that's just not even a preach for this room. They know it, they want to know. Like my children are asking me stuff about sustainability. They want to know, the planet's going to come to an end, like the wave's going to wash us away, like this stuff that comes out of their mouths is quite amazing. We're exposed to so much global content of what's happening, and we want to understand. We've also lived through, whilst we had COVID came and forgot the story. With Renovate or Rebuild, we were filming in people's homes that were burnt by the bushfires, and we almost forgot about it. These people were in a house down in the south of Sydney, and they could see the fire coming, and they had to race. I had to have this lady on a show that looks after roadkill, the kangaroos are being killed by roadkill, and she takes the joeys and rears them. It was an amazing story. But she's grabbing these and running down the grass as the fire's coming, and was burning her house, and she was taken in a boat by this guy who was out on an oyster farm and saw her. Like, heart-wrenching stuff that we've got to put on TV, and I'm going to, it's really hard stuff. So they've gone through a big transition of what's happening, and they want, therefore, to understand, where's this coming from? Is this environmentally a good product to have in my house? Is it going to affect environmentally? Is it good? They want to know all the information. So, and they can find those portals. All of your websites would have that. I even talk about my paper is recycled white paper, and I tend to not print so much stuff as I used to. I have all my folders that I can have, like door profiles and door handles, on an iPad now instead of lots of, like I need a piece for colour or texture, but other things can be images or online. So they're definitely wanting to know that, and that's why it's exciting when you see how products are made and where they go to at the end of the day. It is really important. We recycled all of the metal. So we got the metal guy came and he took all the aluminium windows. We took the hinges off the old doors. Like, we got a bit fixated, but we were super excited to do it. And that story is actually really good for me as a brand as well. Like, it makes financial sense. Not only am I doing it because I believe in it, but if I tell people that, they go, gosh, that's a good guy, I should do that. So it is a very exciting time. I'm not a doomsdayer. I think we evolve. I think we go on, We've been through things before. We've had a crazy German man, 70 years ago. I think that we evolve. But design and how we live in our homes has a huge impact on our well-being. You wake up in the morning and you brush your teeth in an ugly house and the mouldy tiles and things, and you're already shitty before you get in the traffic and get cut off with someone in the fast lane. So design is really important, and it's not all about spending lots of money. I love my timber toothbrush. I actually got it because I didn't have one. I thought I'm going to get a timber one. So yeah, I know I'm preaching.
Did you get the timber cutlery on the plane up here as well?
No, because I flew with Virgin. They give you nothing. I like flying. I should have flown with Qantas. But we
That's not a plug.
Yeah, we have the timber, timber knives and forks, and they're great. You just try and wash the timber spoons and reuse them, and they flatten out. They don't keep the dip. They go. It's like, what's that? It's a spade.
We've got a spork. We've got a question from Sarah Jane as well.
Hello. I noticed you when I walked in actually with that coloured shirt of yours, so I'll just let you know.
It's all very sustainable,
Yeah,
as you can see.
very sustainable.
My name's Sarah Jane. I'm from the BDAA, so welcome, James.
Thank you.
I actually just want to leverage off Jonathan's question. With AI coming in,
Yes.
can you envisage or comment on how clients are going to now come to you with this mid-journey, insane images of how exactly they want their home to
Yes.
look internally and externally? How do you think that's going to affect designers? Because it's a next level mood board that they're bringing to you.
It is a next level mood board. Without being racial in any way, I used to think that my Asian clients were super clever and new technology. It's my Indian clients. One of them the other day was telling me, James, we're so close to having these flexible LED screens now that they're going to roll out an LED screen like wallpaper, like in Total Recall, where you just flick and the whole wall is the backdrop of Paris. He said we're very close to that. So it's amazing to hear this. As far as AI and the visual images, a lot of these homes and finishes that people can make, the renders that they create look so incredibly real, and they're all digitalized, and they're a room of property that doesn't exist in real life. I think it's exciting for them to have this. There's a cost involved in that. A lot of businesses, a lot of people that I deal with that are getting this outsourced through other countries because they're clever and cheap to do it, to produce renders. I am old school. Sandro does all my SketchUp and my 3D stuff. I draw in 3D upside down. I meet you and I forget your name the minute I turn around and get a glass of wine, but I will remember your face in 20 years. So I know I'm very visual, and how I draw, and I've always been able to, is the tools that I use. As far as the preparedness of clients, I think it's utterly exciting if they've got that adaptability to have access to it or to be able to create it and use it. The more invested that they are when I meet them to bring me AI and technology with technology in the property, this is one aspect of what you're asking, it's great for me because that means that they're invested, and mum and dad or the husband and wife or the mother and daughter, whoever's building the property, have talked to each other. So then when I'm in the timber store, we're not fighting over American oak blonde versus black Japan timber floors because they've thought timber but they've never looked at an image.
I also wondered if, as a result of AI, it would actually allow more concepts to be considered and discarded quickly. So, for example, if I like the Hampton style and you like modern,
Yes.
we can actually, using AI technology, blend both our visions internally together.
And have options.
And have options, but also, sort of know ourselves, actually, that was a really crappy idea.
Yeah.
We actually need to have an interior designer or a designer actually designing this, because I can imagine you have many clients that come to you where the husband wants one vision and
100%.
the wife wants
I've got
another.
them coming on Saturday morning,
Yeah.
and they're utterly nice people. She ends up in tears, and he's like the perfect example of passive aggressive.
But
so we went along with everything in the showroom, and then just what do you think, honey? And then shot it down and went back to what he wanted every time. And that's difficult. It's emotional. It's money and it's their home.
Exactly. But as a result of this AI, now you can actually visually show him,
Correct.
actually, that's not going to work.
Correct.
And her, that's why this is the
Correct.
right decision. But at a quicker pace that I can imagine helps designers get further along their build
It
journey.
does, because not everybody can visualize. I have a huge amount of accountants and engineers as clients, and their brain is wired very differently to mine. I don't know. I can pick the color of your car and I could design the leather trim with the double stitching, but underneath that thing it just doesn't even make a noise now in electric cars. I'm not interested. So the brain is different. For people to be using the artificial intelligence to be able to create these images, I think it is great, and it's up to the technology companies creating this product to make them more accessible and affordable to be able to be using. You know, I used to buy Photoshop and SketchUp and Word and put it on my computer. Now we lease it. So we are changing into how we use technology, and we're going to start to get into are we ever going to own things anymore? We just pay permanent money. Yeah. It's then up to me to how much I use that to value that product, to have it in my resource library. But the young ones coming in all know so much. They're much quicker at it. But as I say, it's the process is communication. When I'm in a design school, we run events through TAFE, and I talk to students about creating businesses. 60 to 70% of what I do has anything to do with colour and design. 30% is decision making and marriage counselling, and it's psychology, and it's a bit of salesmanship and explaining, and also being able to prepared to say, okay, I disagree, but I'm going to pick the right shade of that thing that I don't like for your house if you're happy with it, because it's your home, not mine. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Gosh, I got all serious then, didn't I?
Another question, though, is I remember going to events 10 or 12 years ago, and we were talking about the fact that 3D printing was going to take over.
Yeah.
And it didn't really take on as quick.
We were in, it's funny, it goes back to Italy. We were in Rome, and I was dealing with a major tapware company that were launching another product that was made in Italy. So we drove with the kids all the way right up the north, past Lake Como, terrible part of the world. We didn't see George. Didn't make me a coffee. We went to a large tapware company that were printing the taps in 3D. So I was watching this thing. It was like something from Terminator that was making it. It was spinning and printing this a tap that was hollow inside that worked. It was a whole tap, a mixer tap made in front of me with this, acrylic product that they make it with. It's beyond my brain to understand. But I could see this being made in front of me, something like from iRobot. It was amazing. And that is exciting.
Yeah.
But then I think it was only recently one of the first computer generated or 3D printed rockets they tried to set off, and it all fell apart and didn't work. So we still need humans. They can't get rid of us yet.
Because I remember they were talking about carpenters being replaced by 3D printers, and that didn't really, so it depends on how it can actually eventuate.
I'm not scared about trades. Our son now is lost. We still don't know what he got for year 12 last year because he hasn't told us. But I said, become a tradesman, because there's such an important thing for the hands-on. We're not at a stage now where there's one size fits all. Yeah. We're seeing these mass-produced properties now, things that are made off-site and delivered on-site. Yeah, extensions can be done like that, prefab. That's exciting because the trades on there can be working 24/7 regardless of the weather. I think that's exciting. That's a future proof. But you still need people to manually make things, and you still need the human touch because we're humans, and I think we still need that aspect. We had a friend who renovated the home, and I helped as much as I could, and she walked in and she got the freedom, I'm not rubbishing freedom, but she got the freedom person in, and we walked into the house and she goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "I think it's an amazing freedom showroom," because her room looked exactly like a freedom showroom, and she's happy with that. But for me, it was just, there was nothing personal, there was no mishmash. Our house has that thing that costs a lot of money, and this other thing that's super cheap, that's one of the first things I'd grab if the house was burning down, because it tells the story of who we are. And I think homes evolve, and that's why 90% of 80% of what I do is new builds, but my personal passion is renovation. It's problem solving, it's fixing something and keeping it going. And as I'm starting to click over to the other side and getting older, I like this idea of this renovation, of keeping something that's still solid and works well, and keeping it being able to be adaptable and to be evolving. And I think that's really important in our homes.
Which is the European model.
Yeah, exactly, the European model. Funky nonna.
Do we have any more questions, or?
You guys have been great.
Yeah, there's one.
There's one more. I'm sure I can hear tinkle, 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 tinkle. They're making a G&T out the back.
If you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Luke. I'm from Gem Life.
Hey, Luke.
You've been talking a lot about sustainability of materials and what have you in that area. With the new NCC coming into effect in October and large scale renovations like what you're talking about here, as well as new builds, what do you think the impact is going to be for your design sort of area with step-free thresholds and what have you in that sort of area?
We adapt. if you don't adapt, you're not an elephant, you're a mammoth, and the elephant stayed and the mammoth didn't. It's about understanding the expectations. So my life has changed. Many times now I'm at the front doing this to an audience of designers or something at a home show or decor design in Melbourne or something that we do as our trade events through design. And many other times, exactly as I did listen to people speak here, it was Dr. Michael and Simon and David, I'm on the other side learning. So the exciting thing about us is that there's the ever-changing evolution of product knowledge to be able to understand how to put things together. And my builders are doing that. So in my business practice, I have one major builder, which is Edenbray in New South Wales. They're a project builder. They're large volume, and I create their display homes. And then I have boutique builders. So they're quite a different animal, and the expectation of what they can create. I'm continually learning from them, and then sometimes passing on knowledge to them about product and expectation. I was amazed in Melbourne that you don't have to have a floor waste in the middle of a bathroom in Victoria. But you have to, in the shower, obviously you have to. But in a wet area room, they don't in Victoria. But in New South Wales, we have to. So if I live in Albury-Wodonga, I have to have a floor waste in my shower, but I walk across the street and you don't have to. Like, it's super weird. So those things are changing and evolving. So I hope I'm answering your question. It's about, if you're just fixed and you know everything, I can retire and stop working, and it's boring. It's exciting that things change. I'm reticent with the word trend, because to tell me that there's something is trendy means that that other thing is not anymore, and I don't agree with that. I think things evolve. You can keep the old shoes from that time and mix the new scarf, and it's the same in a house. For the knowledge of creating something and building and creating this thing that we call home that comes in so many forms, there's no one size fits all, and technology is changing completely. I disagree with so much. You're allowed to smoke, but you've got to wear a helmet to ride a bike. New extensions on homes have to have the window that only can open that wide because the child's going to fall out. How many children fall out of a window, and why was the child there without you watching? Like, really? We have to have privacy screens now on second-story homes, whereas we used to wave out the window and talk to our neighbour. Like, do we not talk to our neighbours anymore? Like, I find some things are super weird, but they're done by bureaucrats in an office. Other things are technology and advancements in understanding how things work, and that's exciting. So I think we evolve.
Thank you.
No worries. Great question.
Fantastic.
Good.
Any more questions, or...?
I don't mind. We can keep settling in. We'll get a glass of wine, turn it into Parkinson's.
I think that's it. I think
We'll
we got
Jason
it.
up here to do the
Yeah, no problem at
still
all.
up here.
No problem. I want to sincerely thank you all for having me here. It is exciting. I'm in a room of very, very clever people, and your knowledge and the side of the industry that you deal with, this is so very important. And my sense of humour is not hard to hide, you can see it, but there's also a science and an expectation of what I have to do on my side of the coin and dealing with the clients in the front line. So thank you so much for having me, because I've got a lot out of it as well.
Thank you for being with us.
Beautiful. Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone.